You're listening to The Sisters Strain, with another round of our Care to Share series, leading to the screening of our upcoming documentary, The Coalition, on May 16th. We're going to dive a little deeper with 5 of Chatham-Kent's anti-human trafficking coalition members. Each will share about the service organization they operate here in CK, the ways in which they are seeing gender-based violence and human trafficking play out in our community, and the resources they offer survivors of these crimes. Now, a few of these ladies will have an extra bonus as they interviewed with us on topics for our other films, Unhoused, Communities in Crisis, and This Women's Work. So you'll be hearing about how their work is affected by the housing crisis and also their thoughts and experiences as women in the working world. We left that all in because extra information is always a good thing. The only way we can create lasting change is by uniting together and becoming informed. So follow along and, of course, care to share.
I'm Linda Soulliere. I'm the Executive Director of the Chatham-Kent Sexual Assault Crisis Center. I've been in this position for approximately going on 2 years, and I really enjoy the work. Prior to this, I was the Executive Director of the Coalition for Persons with Disabilities in Mississauga, and I was there for about 24 years. So I came to Chatham to retire and didn't quite get there.
And can you tell us what has inspired you to pursue this line of work?
When I first came to Chatham-Kent, I thought, what a pretty little town, and it's so peaceful and so nice that nothing, it's like that perfect little rural place. And then I started to see what was really happening here and how many women have been physically and verbally assaulted every day of every week. And when I got a chance to apply for this job, my background is obviously nonprofit organizations where my specialty is fundraising and granting. So I decided that I would try this. It wasn't much of a switch. We always defended the rights of persons with disabilities and the fragile women that had to put up with tons of abuse and problems there. So it wasn't a far stretch. And then once I got started here and was privy to all the things that are really happening in this community, how could you look away? You can't. I mean, everybody needs to be aware of the truth that's happening in this community as well as other communities.
And can you tell us about some of the ways you're working to try and make people more aware within this community?
We're trying to launch several different awareness campaigns. The first one was our Take Back the Night that we did last year, where we encouraged women to come out and be vocal and be loud and walk at night in the street. And we did a lot of education around why women can't go out at night. It's not safe. So that was a very successful event, and we got a lot of attention with it. So we're doing a self-defense class, which is happening pretty soon. And it's not that the victim should be ever responsible for their safety, but we want women to be more aware. We want them to be able to keep themselves safe, or they'll never be always safe because we can't predict what men will do, but we want them to feel like they are more secure and more safe in their space. So we're doing the self-defense. It's free for all women, and we've been publicizing it a lot. We already have a lot of women registered for it because every year we get the femicide lists. We get lists of women who have been murdered, who have been by the nature of them being feminine. And we get children on that list as well. And every time we get a new list, it breaks our hearts again. We read through the details. It tells us who did it, why, what happened to them. And it's horrible. And yet people aren't aware of it. Nobody really knows that this is going on. Or if they hear on the news a woman's been murdered by her husband, it just passes. But when you see all the names together in a list, and you see that all these women are no longer there, these are real people. So we decided we would take all those names from our femicide list and we would laminate them, put magnets on them, and we're going to put them on cars. The funeral home has donated a lead car and a hearse and staff to marshal the parade. And then we're going to have a funeral to celebrate the lives of these women and to bring awareness to people that we have about 200 names. These are all women who are no longer with us. These are real people. And we're going to carry it on to the parking lot of the courthouse, where it's very rare that there's justice for women. I mean, some of the men who killed these women were on restraining orders. Didn't help. So we're going to end up there where we're going to put all the names into a little coffin we've had made, and we're trying to find a brave enough politician to be able to accept these names. And we're going to read out loud some of the stories of the women. And hopefully that will educate people. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout and people will come in and become passionate. I mean, we can't do it alone, and women can't do it alone. We need men. We need men to stand with us and stand up for us. We'd like to say we can handle it all on our own, but we can't. So we're hoping that we'll get that participation as well.
Speaking of not handling it alone, could you tell us if there's other community partners, if this is, the importance of collaboration for something like this? We can do more when we have more people. So do you find in Chatham-Kent that you have a lot of other community?
Well, the Anti-Human Trafficking Committee is helping with this event. And that is also the Women's Center and the Sexual Assault Clinic at the CK Health Alliance. And we have Victim Services who's participating. We have a lot of the agencies in Chatham are. We had approached the Chatham-Kent Committee again to end violence against women, and they've sponsored our self-defense training. They voted against becoming involved in the symbolic funeral because they didn't want us, some of the members who actually, the Crown Attorney and stuff, didn't want us to end up at the courthouse. But I've explained to them that I cannot and will not change my route. I'm not against the Crown Attorneys, or I'm not against, anybody, a lawyer or anything like that. What we're trying to point out is that how weak our justice system is when it comes to protecting women. And I can't just change my route because somebody doesn't like it. It's the whole point of it is to make that statement that we need change. We need stronger laws. We need men not to be slapped on the wrist and sent on their way. So
this femicide list that comes every year, is this for Ontario or
yes,
Canada?
It's for Ontario alone. And there's one for Canada, but that would be too many names for us. I mean, that'd be like 10,000 names. And worldwide, it's an incredible number of women. So we're doing what we can for our part of Canada, for Ontario. We're doing what we can here in Chatham to make people aware. People don't know that there's human trafficking here in Chatham. They don't know about the fact that there's 6 or 7 assaults on women every day. They don't know about the 1,000 cases of rape that happen here in this community. And we need to educate people, and we need to teach women how to keep themselves safe. The schools need to let us get in there and teach young women how to stay safe and teach young men the legal ramifications of rape. I think people have to get more passionate about issues that matter. And when we get somebody calling and saying, my 12-year-old's just been sexually assaulted, Like, that's just wrong. And for us working here, this work takes a toll sometimes, you know? We hear the stories, we grieve with the women, and we lose our clients sometimes to suicide because they can't handle the trauma. Like, we've lost 3 clients this year to suicide. So, you know, it's bound to affect you after a while. And that's why I get very stubborn and very passionate about what we're doing. And I won't back down. Like, if there's no politician brave enough to come and get this casket, then I'm just going to say there was no politician brave enough to come here today. Maybe I'll hand it to you. You know, it means something.
I wanted to speak a little bit, something you mentioned, because I think it's a bigger picture on a lot of issues when we talk about womanhood and femininity and what society is like modern day. That I was reading an article that our society is very homosocial. Men look to women for intimacy and sex, but the people they respect, the people they admire, the books they're reading, the teachers they want to learn from are all other men. And looking at that, the importance of, like you had mentioned, like, men need to be joining forces. Men need to stop being silent and joining the women. So I'd love to dig into your thoughts on that a little more about the importance of it not just being women doing this work, but society at whole. Men need to step up.
Because no matter how much progress we've made, it really is a man's world. I mean, Canada isn't ready for a woman prime minister, or the States isn't ready for a woman president. I think that men don't understand the problem. And if they do, they try not to show that. So what we need to do is get men to open up, get men to talk about it, get men to understand what women are feeling. You know, it's like the anger that we have is for a reason. You know, you can't just say, oh, feminists, they're just all angry women. Why are they angry? They're angry because they're being beaten, raped, and killed. That's something to make you angry, and men should be angry too. And maybe we have to appeal to the fact that they have daughters, that they have sisters, that they have a mother. All these women are at risk. I mean, 1 in every 3 women will be sexually assaulted before she grows up. And the worst time for women is when they start college in the fall and those kind of sorority things happening. That's the worst and the most dangerous time for women. So I don't know what the solution is for men. I mean, and I don't know how we're going to keep women safe unless we arm them all. But, you know, there has to be a change in the social fabric here. We have to start understanding that it's a we thing. It's not a us thing or a them thing. It's all of us. So we have to be the solution. And I can't just go through life being angry at men. I mean, I like men. Some I even love. I mean, and at some point in life, I really liked men. It's just, as you understand the issues, you have to make it a point of keeping them accountable. Because it is other men who will have to police other men.
That's it. I was right. Women can't hold men accountable. It will only count to men if another man is holding them accountable for their actions, unfortunately. And that's where the lack comes in.
And that's why we encouraged men to come out to our Take Back the Night march. Support your wives, support your sisters, support your daughters. And for this symbolic funeral, you know, we're hoping to have, again, a male presence in this because it's important that they understand it too.
We're talking about the, silence of men in some regards, but silence in general is a big problem when we talk about sexual assault, femicide, human trafficking, any of those issues. Would love to hear your perspective on
on taking the silence out of it and speaking more in it culturally.
If we don't know enough, why don't we know? Right?
Yeah. I think that's why our campaign for Take Back the Night was called Shatter the Silence. We need to talk. We need to have more awareness. We need to be on the radio more. We need to be in front of people more. We're doing our best. We're a very small center, and we're trying our hardest to get out there and to reach people. And, well, I can talk a lot, but we need to shatter that silence. It's not helping anybody. And women who come here are so ashamed. They're ashamed of what happened to them. They don't want anybody to know. They're afraid to go to the police. We have a client who actually got a tattoo after her rather unpleasant meeting with the police that said, F the police, because she wasn't going back to them. We had another client who had, whose rapist was let out of jail. She was sitting in a coffee shop. He came and sat right beside her, and she told him he couldn't be there. He had to leave. And he said, well, they're not going to do anything to me. So she went and filed a complaint at the police, and the police told her, well, we can't really do anything unless he attacks you. Well, that would make me feel safe. So we need to let people know what's happening. And I wish I could get the opportunity to sit down with some of the police here and let them know what feedback our women are giving on how they're being treated. One woman was asked, well, do you have a witness? Who has a witness to rape? Like, yeah, the guy who raped me is probably a good witness. So, we can't just keep doing this over and over. And what gives men the feeling and that they have the right to do this?
Not being punished.
The power.
And out of 1,000 cases, maybe 100 get reported. Out of those 100, maybe 10 actually get charged because most of them are deemed unfounded. It's her word against his word. Out of those 10 that get charged, maybe 3 actually end up with some kind of punishment, maybe a few months in jail or something. So what kind of justice is that? What does that tell women? Why go to the police? They're not going to do anything. They're just going to embarrass the hell out of you. So, I don't know.
And amplify the danger you're in, because if you're
piss someone
silent,
off, they're going to come back for vengeance.
Yeah, and you never know. And we get women who are terrified. I mean, at the Women's Center, they get women all the time who are terrified that their husband's going to kill them. And they, can't. We need more safe housing. We need support. Somebody who's been trafficked, where do you put them when you get them? We don't have safe housing here for them. It's like telling the trafficker, hey, here she is, come get her again. So I think we need to really think about putting some supports in place in this community and making some noise and making it important. I'm tired of people not wanting to know.
I mean, the silence in society is if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. But
until it happens to you or someone you know, and then suddenly it becomes very real.
Then it exists. Yeah. So that's why I'm doing this. And, I talk to everybody and anybody, and we're trying to continue to put the pressure on. And that's why I end my funeral at the courthouse, and that's why we walk through Crowfest. I mean, we won't be denied. We're going to get our message out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you will.
I don't think there's any way now you're stopping traffic, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you're going to get, even if it's only so many heads this time, those people will then talk. It trickles out, right? But it takes getting out there and making that big splash, right?
And this is going to become an annual event, just like Take Back the Night. So we're going to have another Take Back the Night this year, and then we're going to have another funeral, and we're going to keep going. And that's all we can do.
Keep going until it's hopefully not necessary at some point, which...
Yeah, I can't see that in the near future, but that would be my dream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else we can do to keep women safe. I think as a society, it's all of our responsibility. Women are supposed to be the mothers, the nurturers, the givers, the creatives. We have to cherish that life. And it's just not working out so well for us right now.
I wanted to ask a little something more for the community film in this sense. We've gotten the opportunity to sit in on your coalition and see how it's a lot of strong female leadership working together to amplify your resources and better the cause. Could you give your perspective on the importance of having that strong collaboration and working together to make bigger change?
I absolutely agree that we need to collaborate with other women's organizations and other organizations in general. But we have a really strong core group of women here in Chatham-Kent that really respect and admire each other. And from the time I started my job here, they just welcomed me in with open arms. And I have so enjoyed the past 2 years working with them, and them. We support their events and they support our events. And that makes a big difference in trying to do this work. You don't feel like you're alone. I mean, they all contributed money towards our events. So it's good.
And do you think, from doing that too, it sounds like it kind of helps maybe individuals in the community from maybe falling through the cracks sometimes?
We do have strong relationships with everybody. And when a client comes in here, if they're in need of housing and emergency services like that, we'll send them to Karen over at the Women's Center. And if they need a rape kit, we'll go with them up to see Tara at the sexual assault clinic. Or we'll refer them over to victim services because they have more money than we have for things the victims might need. At the same token, if Tara at the sexual assault clinic gets a client that needs counseling and service right away, she'll refer them to us and she'll help make the call and they'll come to us. The same with Karen, same with victim services. They refer to us if they have a client who's in need of some crisis counseling. So it works out well. I mean, we all collaborate and support each other. And it makes the work lighter. Many hands make lighter work. So it helps the clients too, because the women feel more surrounded by supports.
And dare I say that's already fighting the system, because the system, the patriarchal systems, are designed to keep women separate and isolated and not relying on each other. So already us coming together in these little groups, what I keep calling mini matriarchies I see around town, is already us fighting the very systems. Mm-hmm. Just that alone.
If it was up to the men or the patriarch, we would be in competition, not cooperation. And I really believe in the art of cooperation. I'm not here to compete with anybody. I pray and hope you do well. Because if you're doing well, then I can do better. Mm-hmm. So I think that most women in this community see the benefits of that. And they are so supportive. But, we have to keep pushing that.
Yeah, women are kind of changing the face of leadership, changing what it means to be a leader and how you kind of carry that position, what qualities that
Putting
garners.
egos aside and realizing we can do more when we do it together.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always felt through my whole career that people needed to work cooperatively. That, if I had an employer luncheon, for example, where I invited 300 employers to come to a lunch to talk about disability issues. And as part of that, I invited all the other services in the community as well to come and sit at the table. And it was so successful. We had so many people, everybody showed up. And then after that, we started doing partnerships on different events and stuff, but you just have to really open your heart and your arms to other people and say, let's do something. Let's do something together. It makes it more meaningful.
Absolutely. I want to go back a little bit to the stronger topics here, like human trafficking. Let's go there. If are we seeing more of it in our community nowadays? Why do you think that is? And why don't you think people are aware?
We're seeing more human trafficking in this area, I think, because human trafficking as a whole is on the uprise. People aren't aware of it because it's kept to the outskirts or to the motels. Chatham-Kent gets a lot of human trafficking because we're on the 401 corridor, and women are trafficked from the east through to the Detroit area on the 401. There's lots of motels where they can pull over and make some money. The problem with human trafficking is the people who are buying this service. And there are men in Chatham-Kent who are buying this. And nobody wants to know that, because it could be your grandfather, it could be your daddy, who are paying for the services of these trafficked women. And when we do get a woman who has been trafficked and we get her out, sometimes we have to get the police to put her in safe housing, in a safe home, because they'll try and get her back. And then after she also can come with drug addiction. She can come, she's been physically abused as well. And then she has, what job will she get? How will she live? Will she be safe? Where do we put her? So there are a lot of issues that come along with human trafficking, and this community is trying their best, but they're not filling the need right now. I mean, women can go to the women's shelter, but there's limited beds. There's only one human trafficking bed there. And what do you do after that? Where do you put her after? She's been there for a little while.
In your opinion or your experience from what you've seen firsthand, why do you think so many young women are falling prey to being involved in human trafficking?
I think social media has a lot to do with it. And I think that, there's that wanting to be loved and appreciated, and some man comes along and tells you, oh, honey, come meet me. And then once you meet him, you find out the hard way, the truth. A lot of young women are naive. They are looking for love. They're looking for acceptance. I think it's really important to talk to young women as young as 12 years old, because the age of trafficking is going lower and lower and lower. So we need to talk to young girls, and we need to impress upon them that, no, you cannot meet somebody on social media and think that it's okay that he's going to be your saving grace. And then you get a lot of young girls who don't have a good home life, and so they're looking for that acceptance somewhere else. But we need to do more education.
When you mention education, do you think, because we had spoken with Karen, she was saying that I think a lot of the younger girls who are in it, they don't really realize what they're getting into until they're too far in. It's like, oh, we'll go to a trip here and you'll get, do this one little thing for me and you'll get this present. Oh, then do it for this person. And it's like little, bits of time. Grooming. Do you think, the grooming, do you think a lot of victims don't actually realize what they're getting themselves into?
Oh, absolutely. They think it's going to be great. They're looking forward to this. Until they find out, that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So I think, we need to Education. And the schools won't let us in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they're so afraid to let us in. They don't want us to talk about sex. We're not actually going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about things like awareness and be aware and social media and permission and all those other things. And what to do if you think you're being trafficked, how to get out. So,
if you had your way, what would you be doing in the community, in the schools? Like, what would your plan be if you could have access to anywhere you needed to be able to spread this awareness? What would your plan be to help this?
well, our first choice would be to be allowed into the high schools, where we would offer workshops specifically around consent and human trafficking. We were invited into Pain Court, where we did a human trafficking workshop in the high school there, and it was well received. They want us to come back. But I got to get the other schools to open up their doors. So that's one thing we need to do. We're already doing workshops. We did some with community living and sexual assault. And we're getting in those places now. And I'm still knocking on the doors of the high schools, and I'm going to make sure they let us in eventually, so that we can really start at a younger age. We need to start dealing with young men too, with boys. Boys need to understand what's at stake here for not only the young women, but for themselves. I mean, you get hit with a rape charge when you're in high school, and that's going to not play well for you. So I think there's lots of work to do, and I wish I had more people and more money, but we're trying to make do with what we have. And we've had some kind donations in the community, and which has helped a lot with some of our special events.
I wanted to know, with people, were two of those people who didn't realize there was, human trafficking happening in Chatham. Do you think oftentimes it's the stigmas associated with sex work? People think, oh, if someone's, it's prostitution. They signed up willingly. They knew they wanted work. They were going to pay to get money. Not thinking of the factors of, like, not everyone who is in sex work actively chose to get involved or realized what they were getting involved in or know how to get out once they're in.
I think there is a stigma. I mean, there's nothing wrong with sex work if that's what you choose to do and if it's done fairly and you're safe. I think for human trafficking, there's that same stigma that these girls are selling themselves, but they don't have a choice, and they were lured into it. And so I think there's a difference, but there's the shame. Eh? People don't want to see it. They don't want to know it's here. Just like when they go by the homeless encampment. They don't want to know that's there. And they don't want to know that there's women in there being raped. So what do? You just have to keep putting it out there. And you have to have some, compassion training.
So we talked a little kind of like the causes of it or why it's happening so much in whether it's sexual assault, whether it's human trafficking, domestic violence in Chatham. We talked a little bit about maybe why some young ladies get into human trafficking. But if you could kind of pinpoint what you see most often, is it mental health? Is it homelessness? Is it drug addiction? Is it the lure of social media or maybe it's all those things?
It's all those things. I mean, the girl who gets trafficked could be the girl next door. She could be this innocent little 15-year-old who's on her way to school and gets picked up. She could be a runaway who's had a very hard time at home. Somebody offers her something. So there's all kinds of reasons it happens. Could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, these men are ruthless. Doesn't matter. And so I don't think there's any one reason for it happening. And I think people should be aware that it could happen to your child. You know, you can do everything right, and she could make one slip, or she could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or her friend could introduce her to somebody. That's all it takes. She disappears.
Have you noticed a rise in domestic assault, sexual assault, trafficking, etc., with the rise of like the encampment locally? Have you noticed more cases happening?
Well, there are cases happening from there. We do get women who've been sexually assaulted who are homeless and living in the encampment. I think overall cases are on the rise. It's the one major crime that hasn't had a decrease in Chatham-Kent that's had a year-over-year increase. I don't know why. Short of global castration, I don't know what the solution is. But sexual assault and violence is alive and well and living in Chatham-Kent. And we're trying to stave it off as best we can. But we can just deal with the trauma that happens and trying to help women get back together and how to deal with their own shame and their own feelings and what has happened to them in the relationships that have been torn apart. So
I was wondering about, I was going to say about the drastic numbers of femicide cases. Do you think that has like risen, or were we just not hearing about it as much before? Like, did we not have a list for a long time?
We've had a list every year. And every year there are, well, it's gone up in the last few years, but every year there are a substantial number of women that are listed as victims of femicide. Now, there are more women than that killed, but they're not on the femicide list because of whatever reason. And I feel that if a woman has been raped and beaten and then chooses to take her life, she should be a victim of femicide. But we have at least one woman every 5 days being murdered here in Ontario.
And so, like, I see the correlation here. I think I talked about it last time. I was reading in this book, a book called Vagina, which talks about so many things about the female experience, but it was talking about how the access to pornography has made men, because they can get that stimulation so easily and they do it so often, it doesn't stimulate them as much, so they have to keep getting more and more aggressive in what they're watching. And that's how we've gotten to a place where more women are consenting to things they don't actually want to participate in, and more women or men are demanding it because what used to work for them doesn't work anymore. And I sort of wondered the correlation there. I imagine if a man, there's domestic assault that's minimal, and then you get a tap, and then it's just a little bit more, and then you get a tap. That's why it keeps transgressing. To add on to that, I was going to say, if you have a woman who comes, and yes, if she puts her complaint through, but it doesn't get done, do you find that there's a lot of repeat offenders, and then it just keeps getting worse?
There are cases where we've had women who have been totally terrorized and stalked for years because they can. A woman who's not secure at all, who's, afraid all the time. And pornography is something that, here in Chatham-Kent even, we have a lot of child pornography. And, those cases have been documented here, the men who are making child porn. And nobody likes to know what's going on in their community. No, we're not like that. But yeah, it's here. And I think it contributes a great deal to the violent assaults on women. And we have to, I don't know what the solution is. It's like you've got your finger in a hole in a dam and water's leaking all around it,
Mm-hmm. And if you can't actually, like we're suggesting with men, if you don't actually have severe consequences for the lesser crime, there's no reason to not keep committing further and further,
Pushing
more
the
and more
boundaries,
aggressive.
I guess. Yeah.
Like if you can't fix that one hole, then the cracks are going to start forming, right? And it's going to get worse.
Yep. And most men don't get just consequences. I personally know a man who had abused an 8-year-old girl for 3 years, sexually assaulted her. He ended up getting 9 months. He was out in 6. She grew up and took her own life. Like, where's the justice? There is none. And, it just breaks your heart every time you hear it happening over and over again. And people tend to blame the woman. If your husband beat you, you must have did something to deserve it, right? I don't care what you do. You can spit in his food. He doesn't have the right to hit you. So I think the attitudes really need to change.
We had this conversation last night about the power of language and wording also, right?
Especially in our media.
We talk about the victims, woman was assaulted or whatever, but we don't actually put the onus on man attacks woman or man assaults wife,
We'll
right?
print the victims' names, but we leave the anonymity to the perpetrator because we don't want to, affect their future.
Or affect the court case. He just slaughtered this family. But we got to keep his name out of it. When I first started here, we went to the city and did a what do you call it? Deputation.
Deputation, yeah.
And Chatham-Kent did declare intimate partner violence an epidemic, as did about 84 other municipalities in Ontario. So the Coalition of Rape Crisis Centers was advocating for the province of Ontario, and somebody was putting forward a bill to declare violence against women an epidemic in Ontario. The Ford government put that on ice and sent the bill somewhere to die and did not declare. So, which is one of the reasons why I did invite Mr. Ford to come to our parade, our symbolic funeral, so that, I could hand deliver him the names of 200 women who died in this province. And he just said he couldn't do it. He was too busy.
I mean, I'm sure everyone can gather their own thoughts on why it's important, obviously, or you would think it should be important, but from your own words, why is it important for us to be aware of the names, to make these victims human and not just a number? Like, why are you so passionate about making sure people know the names?
Everybody has the right to an identity. And every woman on that list has a name, has a story, has a family. And we want to tell those stories. I mean, we're going to tell them when we get to the courthouse. We're going to say, this is Rita. She was 49. She had 3 children. She was murdered by so-and-so. We want there to be an identity to her. She is not just a number. It's like any of us. If it was you or me, I would want people to remember that. And we don't want to just gloss over it and say, 62 women, 48 women. These are the names of the women. And we're going to honor them.
Do you think we have a habit of desensitizing victims in our media, in our society?
I think as a whole, across the world. I mean, when you look at the news or the media that's out there and you hear about 35 people killed today in Gaza and so many people killed here and that, and then you read a story about a woman and her 2 children were murdered by her husband. Everybody's like, oh my, and then that's it. They forget about it. We don't want to let people forget. This is not something that is right. So we're going to continue to bring attention to it and put the spotlight on it and say their names. Like, just recognize who they are. And I think that's why it's so important to us. I mean, I read the lists. I hear their names. I want everybody to have that, to be impacted by it.
How do you juggle, personally, hearing these stories and trying to find justice for these victims and knowing that it often doesn't happen where they find the justice they need?
How do you keep
cope
being
with that?
passionate about your work and
how do you
doing
keep
it
showing
day to
up?
day?
And
I have been sort of a activist my whole life, from the time I was very young in high school with the student union. And then, when I was working with persons with disabilities, I made a point of going to the mat and going fighting for who needed to help to fight, and always, agitating the powers that be. It kind of gives me energy. I like it when people tell me, don't go to the courthouse. Oh, I'm going there. It's kind of like, if they're getting upset with you, it's working. If people are having a reaction to you, it means you're getting under their skin, which is one of my favorite things in life. So it energizes me because I believe in justice. I believe in fair play. And I believe in honoring the people who need your help. And so it's just a part of who I am. I thought I'd be retired by now, but I just can't let it go. I always get these great ideas in the middle of the night.
you're a woman after our own hearts.
I know. That's when all my poetry comes. That's when I'm writing movie scenes in my head.
You love to keep adding more and more to our plate. There's so much to be done.
I started a whole program when I worked with the Coalition for persons with disabilities as a practice firm, and I wrote that proposal in the middle of the night. I mean, sometimes you just say, oh, how can I do that? And then and it's great working with the women here, because like with Kayla, I tell her, Kayla, this is my vision. I want a poster, and I want wings, and I want a woman, and this and that. And she'll make it so that when I see it, that's what I wanted. And so it's so much fun working with these women because they understand it. And if I tell them, this is my vision, this is my passion, I need it to be strong, I need it to be bold, well, then they come up with bold voices, safe choices. They understand the concept that I'm trying to get across, and they can see the vision. And so it works so well. I'm so impressed.
Do you wish more people were activists, had that fire in them? Do you think the world would be a better place if there were?
Absolutely. I mean, if people would stand up for justice, stand up for each other, we would be in a much better position. We can't just be so selfish all the time. And I really believe that. I believe that if you start to deal with your fellow human beings with kindness and compassion and generosity and, fire, and that we'll get somewhere. Mm-hmm. But we need activists like you guys too, You do your thing, you get the point across.
You just,
Everyone's
highlighting the
do
work
what
you
they
do.
can.
Yeah.
Well, and follow the hunches too, right? The symbolic funeral. Has it been done in town before? The idea came to you. You're following the hunch. I'm sure some people could think of that and be like, that would be so symbolic, make such an impact. But there's so much work. I don't know if anyone will come on board, but you went to the funeral homes. You asked. You went to your community partners. You asked.
You went to the Justice of Peace, and when they denied, you said, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I will find a different route. And that's, I think, where we lose a lot of people in change-making society. They give up.
Yeah, I am a very stubborn person. And it's like when we were doing Take Back the Night. Even the day before, I said to the women here, I said, oh my God, I hope we have more than 10 people. We ended up with over 200 people. But the city called me 2 days before the walk and asked if I would change my route because Crowfest had decided to change their date. And we were supposed to be walking down King Street, but Crowfest was going to be there. And I said, look, I have my permit. I'm walking down King Street. I will go through Crowfest, but I am not changing my route. And if you insist, then you're telling me that beaten, raped, and murdered women mean less than crows, then you go ahead and say that. I have a radio interview tomorrow, and I will let everybody know what your opinion is. And so they called me back and said, oh, you don't have to move your route. I said I had no intentions of it.
Yeah, like it's not funny,
You're
but it is, and you have to say that, but like spell it out for people.
So it was great, though, because the people in Crowfest were cheering and making noise with us, and it was a great walk. You know, they enjoyed it too, and they were really noisy, and so were we. We had cowbells and whistles, and we were going through.
Yeah. Should be more present at events like that.
Do you think the fact that you've experienced domestic abuse in your own life makes you more passionate about this cause and also better able to understand your clients and know what they're going through and what they need at that time of crisis?
Okay. When I was younger, and I had a husband who was very violent. At first, he wasn't, and then it started slowly, and then you could look at him and say, gee, how was your day today? And some days it'd be like, oh, great, and the other days, whack, you know? And I lived in fear for my life for 10 years. He tried to run me over with the car. He would hit me. He would burn me. It was a very dark time because I never thought I would be the kind of woman who would put up with that, who would allow that. But I was so terrified. When I ran away and he found me, he threatened to burn down the house I was in. So it was always, this constant terror. And I began to realize, and then one day I fought back. And I said, look, if you're going to kill me, do it now, because this is your last opportunity. And I hit him. And after that, I swore that I would never, ever, ever allow myself to be in a relationship like that. And even when I was dating after, if somebody raised their voice, if somebody said something that sounded off, I was done. Like I just did not tolerate anything. And I think that made me realize how many women are in that position that I was in. How many women are afraid when they go to sleep at night or afraid to even be in the home. And it kind of made it so that I decided I was not going to live my life as a victim. I was going to do something else. And that was not it. And so I really worked on myself. I worked on my fears. I worked on how I dealt with conflict and what those feelings were in me. And I thought I kind of got past it. And then when I started working here and hearing all the stories, all the trauma just rose back up. And I would go to bed at night. For the first few weeks I was here, I'd go to bed at night and I kept replaying in my brain all those moments, all that fear. And I thought, holy, you never know where it's going to come from. And I think that's why it's important that we continue to do this work. We are not only helping others heal, we're healing ourselves. And I know there's a lot more women who've never said it out loud that they've experienced that, who've never admitted, because you feel like ashamed that you allowed that, even though you didn't have the tools not to. And, it even came to a point one day where I stood over him with a loaded rifle and thought of killing him while he was sleeping. And then saying, well, then my children would have nobody. So, women can be driven to dangerous lengths. And so I think that's where the passion comes in. And most women I know who work in this field have had that experience, have been assaulted or raped or in a domestic violence situation. And unfortunately, a lot of women never get out. And when they do try, they end up on the femicide list. So that's my story. I think, I made that conscious choice that I was not going to be a victim anymore. And we have to help women do that.
I was thinking the whole time we were talking about the list, right? And how, like, if a man, is prone to violence and that there's no saying when that he would stop at a certain level or if he would stop at a certain level. And what they're in mind the whole time is how upset this list makes you. Like, you could have been a name on that list.
I could have been.
If you stayed and accepted that.
Yeah, I could have been. Because, the violence escalates. Maybe he wouldn't have. Maybe he would have came to his senses and just left. That was my hope. And I think any one of us could have ended up on that list. All it takes is one person who stalks you or wants to do you harm or doesn't want to let you go or is obsessed with something. And it could happen to any of us. Some are random strangers.
Yeah, I was going to say, similar to the stigmas that we've discussed in the other areas of violence towards women, I think the notions here are also like, oh, why would she stay with him? Why would a woman get involved? Why would they get married to a man like that? And from your own experience, it seems like they weren't always like that. It wasn't that.
Well,
and then it escalated over time.
And women like to think they can fix things, right? So you may take a man is slightly bent and broken, and you think you're going to fix him. You think that him being with you is going to make him all better because we're the nurturers, we're the caretakers. And then you find it just keeps getting more difficult and difficult. So a lot of women are ashamed of the fact that they fell for it, that they were in that situation, and a lot of women don't want to leave it, and they think, well, this is my fault. I must have done something to make him angry. Or, what is it about me that pisses him off so much? So we take the blame, and we also take the responsibility of trying to fix this person. Oh, well, if I stay, maybe he said he's sorry, maybe he means it this time. Maybe, maybe not.
I'm just thinking it's like a double-edged sword, right? It's awful to know that so many women have been affected by this who are now in these positions to help clients who are experiencing the same thing, but also beautiful in a way to know that because you've been through it, your mind wouldn't jump to that victim blaming or, well, what did you do? Or what could you have done differently, right? Because you can have that compassion and you don't have that stigma. You look at the woman as, I know how you've possibly gotten to this situation. I'm not going to question that. All I want to do is now help you get the resources you need. And I think for anyone who hasn't experienced it, it might be really difficult for them to put those prejudices aside.
I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot from men, from women. Well, she should have just left. You don't know what goes on in this head. You don't know how many times I tried to leave. You don't know the fear and the crippling fear that prevented me. You don't know that there were no shelters then. And I had 3 children. Like, there's so much you don't know. And so I think that we have to look at women differently, and understand their stories. And fear is a big thing. I mean, it's not that easy to get out of once you have this raging, strong person in front of you, threatening you. So they can say that all they want. You should have just left. Well, sometimes you can't. And when you do, you end up on the femicide list.
The title of the community film. Well, this is all based on the community film, so we'll put the sexual assault, domestic violence aside for now. The title of the film is This Women's Work, about the work that women are doing in their communities. When you hear women's work, what comes to mind? And how do you think of that in relation to what that meant for your grandmother, what it meant for your mother, what it's meant for you, what it means for your daughter and future generations?
Your granddaughter, yeah.
I think women's work is kind of like everything. Women are the nurturers, the caretakers, the responsible people. They're the mothers. So we have so many roles attached to everything we do. And when we talk about women's work, it's usually involving women taking care of other women, or taking care of people or children or even men. So I think it's a big role to fill. I saw my grandmother taking care of a very large family and making do and doing all those things and sacrificing. I saw my mother do the same thing, take in anybody off the street and feed them and sacrifice. And I guess it carried over to me because I've adopted a lot of people along the way too. But I think it should be women's and men's work. We shouldn't let them off so easy. I mean, but women's work is everything. I mean, we're business owners, we're entrepreneurs, we're so many other things. We're organizers, we're creators, we take care of people, we do things. I mean, can you imagine how much wouldn't get done in this world if there were no women? It's up to us. Because, men are a little more selfish than women are. I mean, I think women should be a little more selfish. I think we sometimes give too much, and we should hold back some of that for ourselves. But, women's work is a big category.
You mentioned entrepreneurship in your answer. Speaking of entrepreneurship, because we've noticed a rise in female entrepreneurship in Chatham. So first part of the question, do you agree with that? Have you seen a rise in entrepreneurship? And do you feel within those female entrepreneurs, do you think women often combine purpose with their profit?
I think that, there is a lot more female proprietorships and entrepreneurship. And I think it's about time. I mean, I've always been a great advocate for, you can do whatever you want and you can achieve whatever you want and don't let anybody stop you. I think that women do sometimes combine too much of their compassion for their community and for charitable stuff with their business so that they are not just pure profit as some male operated businesses are. But where would we be without them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that somebody has to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And if I had to choose, I'd say it's going to be a woman.
Well, in speaking with that, women often take on more care roles with mental health,
social work, working with youth,
nurses, etc. And Stats Canada shows that those jobs are paid quite a bit less per hour than traditionally masculine roles, construction, garbage, physical labor, as opposed to the emotional labor. Do you think we still have a fair amount of work to do in terms of pay equity?
Oh, gosh, we have a lot of work to do for pay equity. And, when young women come to me and say, I'm not sure what to take in college. And I said, go for the trades. Get yourself a trade and make tons of money and have a pension. I said, don't work in social services and you'll have low pay, no pension, and you'll end up like me, not able to retire. So I always tell them, go into the sciences, go into the male field and get yourself that kind of education so you can secure your future. You have to think about your future.
Or society needs to shift the importance of those roles and pay them appropriately.
Well, adjust how we're evaluating, how we're placing value on things, right? A physical labor job, because we can see the physical labor gets valued highly, whereas emotional labor jobs we can't see that labor as
Doesn't
much,
mean
so
it
we
takes
think
any less
it
toll
doesn't
on
have
our
as much
body.
value.
So in the meantime, go for the physical job.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be a quick fix. But, women's work isn't valued as much as men's work. Like, I think what we do is tremendously valuable. We keep everybody on the rails. We stop there from being a major meltdown, but nobody recognizes that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Until they see our face. And then
Until they see
They
it.
start thinking about it differently.
And they're going to say, holy.
Look at what these women are doing.
Yeah.
They've always been doing it. They've always been here. So we can make our assumptions about how you feel about this, but your experience with females in leadership, what do you think about women in leadership?
I think women are the best leaders. Although, I think in this, I'll give you a different perspective. In this society, where the male dominance is so dominant, women in leadership often feel like they have to imitate men. And so then you get this competitive male kind of ego trip. And it makes it very hard to work with those women because they are trying to compensate for not being men. And they're trying to make their name in a men's world by taking on those male traits. So then there are some women who are quite aware of the need to lift other women up and are willing to be that kind of a leader, to be that cooperative leader. And those are the ones I enjoy working with. But I've had to work with both kinds. And, just because we're women doesn't mean we're not susceptible to the crap that males do.
Yes, we like to call them the patriarchal women, acting out of the patriarchal hierarchy.
But I always was raised, or I would hear my mom say sometimes, yeah, but sometimes women in charge, there's a problem that when women get to, women in charge, they tend to be catty and bitchy. They can be really difficult and that sort of thing, right? And I'm like, yeah, but there's so many women in charge who aren't like that. But I see why there's a certain generation of women from generations before, I think, right? A lot of those women getting in positions of power, of leadership, they did feel like they had to compete with men. They had to be men to keep that position.
They looked at all the qualities and traits that made a man a leader, and they took them on as much as they could.
I have to be the same.
And went extra.
Yeah.
But we can be women, we can be feminine, we can be loving, compassionate, and understanding, and still be good leaders while being cooperative and compassionate.
And I think we need to teach men that. I mean, there's a better side to all of us.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that. I mean, if you work with other people and you really genuinely care for them and want them to do their best and you want to bring that out and you admire and respect their spirit, then you can get there. But it's when you have this competitive edge, like, I don't want you to do well because then it makes me look less. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. I want everybody to do well. And then we'll do okay.
I think when you find yourself in those spaces, I think it's also portrayed in the media a lot, women, female cattiness and competitiveness, because again, when we do come together in large groups, we really rise collectively. So I think it's very purposeful that we're shown that sort of dynamic often to keep us separate, because there's so many spaces where I've been in with groups of women that are so inspiring and so uplifting. And that is kind of a hidden secret. Is like if all women knew that and celebrated that and we worked together, we would overtake the patriarchy so fucking quick. Come on.
Absolutely.
There's a reason they're keeping us apart. I also think there's a reason that we are structurally in society keeping older women from younger women as well. Because I know if I was in my 20s, if I had the knowledge that I have now or the women above me have now, I would have spared myself so much heartache and trouble, right? There's a reason we don't want young women knowing the wisdom
It's
of
like
the older
Indigenous people. I mean, the older women are respected for their knowledge. And, young women try and learn that. And I so enjoy meeting new people, new women. Anytime I go to an event where there's a crowd of people, and I just go and say hello because I want to meet you. I want to get that essence from you. I want to feel your power and your strength, It's so important. Like people say, oh, I'm too shy, or don't be shy. Just stick your hand out, say hello.
We're all just people.
We're all just people. And I've never had anybody say, get away from me.
Yeah.
Well, because it'll look bad.
I know, it's such a simple thing, right? It's like we all have so much to offer in our own unique ways that if we actually we had a conversation recently with someone, it was like, no one deserves just to be tolerated. There's so much to celebrate in each individual unique person that if we actually just looked at a human being instead of wanting to decide what we want from them, what we need them to be, and just took them in, we're like, we could see their beautiful traits and qualities and realize there's so much I can learn or garner from that person. And
Every single person I meet them because I was supposed to. And there is something I'm supposed to learn from every person that I meet. No matter who they are. So I always try and look at it as, what is my lesson? So when I go and I stick my hand out and I say hello, I'm looking at saying, what lesson am I supposed to learn today from this person?
Yeah. I think of it the same, that relationships of any variety are a mirror. A mirror for you to see your blind spot, maybe what you're not accepting in yourself. And typically it's most often when we feel a little bit irked by someone's presence or there's something that off-puts us. That's usually when I'm like, I need to dig deeper here. There's something this person is reflecting, likely something I'm denying in myself that they're exhibiting that tells me it's probably something about myself actually, and I need to do a little digging. There's something here.
I had one woman, I was working with her in a group, and she came up to me and said, I really hate you. And I looked at her and I smiled and I said, thank you for sharing that. That is so brave. And she didn't know what to say.
That's so funny.
And
That's audacious.
We ended up being able to have a conversation about why she felt that way.
Interesting. That's so peculiar. 12 minutes.
Okay. I have one more question that I want to, I'll say, keeping with the celebrating everyone and everyone's individuality, I'll say one comment before I go into this last one, but we're also something we read recently in a conversation we had with another woman about even feminism and the fight for feminists. But if feminists were able to join in their movements with the 2SL, GBTQ, I keep messing up, community of trans women all along there, imagine how much we could get done in building a better society for everyone if we all join forces, to for the better of all of
our end game initiatives are for all people to be respected, right? Yeah. And
that's
valued.
Right. Equality, to be seen for who you are, to be seen for your skill sets.
Celebrated.
No matter what you look like, no matter what your gender is, no matter, any of those things.
What's your race?
Yeah. And that's where I was going to go into, I think, our final question. It's an interesting time for DEI or EDI. Is that when people are referring to it now?
Some people are saying IED.
DEI.
Yeah.
And so, especially with what's happening in the States, trying to remove that. I know you worked with inaccessibility for a long time as well. I'm sure you have multiple perspectives of where that's touched in your life, but how important do you think keeping those initiatives alive are for strengthening communities?
I think that when we start discriminating against certain groups and types, we're going down a very dangerous slope. We fought so hard through my whole lifetime for equality. I was in grade 9 when I read Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. I was reading about the Black Panther movement, about the Trail of Tears and the Cherokee people. When you realize how much we've come and how far we still have to go, Indigenous people in Canada still are not respected. They lost so much, their identity, their culture, their language. And I've dealt with that situation in a Native community. And then when you look at, my children are Black, and there's still that problem there where people won't accept, they think I adopted them, whatever. So and then if you bring in the LGBTQ community, and you start taking away the rights that all of us have spent time on the street fighting for, where are we going with that? We can't let that happen. I mean, people in the States, it's unfortunate that there's so many uneducated people there who don't understand the basics of humanity. I think we need to do better here. And we have to keep up that fight and keep up that initiative. I'm not willing to let go one step that we made. And nobody should be. We should all join together. Like women and of all nations and trans women and anybody else who identifies. We should be working together. We should not be staying apart. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think
Unless you have any other
given us
statements,
all, yeah. Unless there's anything else you feel impassioned to say to be included in the project,
I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, I think we
did, yeah.
I just can't not feel passionate about what I do, because I do care deeply. I care that you have protection in the future, and you have protection as young women, that you can live your lives free of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need women like you protecting and advocating for everyone.
And I don't foresee a time when I will stop.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Sister Strain.